Spooling up your Daiwa electric reel can confuse quite a few people and can seem a lot harder than it actually is. So we're going to run you through a few little tips and techniques on getting it done right the first time and avoid any problems that you might have out on the water. Firstly, when actually tying your line to the spool, these particular spools have a little section on them which is designed to have the line tied around it, so you don't need to use any backing lines of any description, and that way we can actually set our exact length of our line so there's no confusion as to what might be underneath our top shotted line. So I've already tied a knot in here. The line is spooled through the guides of the rod to my spool that I'm going to run onto the reel. I'm going to slip that knot over the top in there and pull down tight. And that's all I actually need to do. I've already threaded it through the line guide on the rod. It doesn't have to be lined up with the line guide, as a lot of people might think. It actually doesn't matter at this stage, because that'll level itself out later on if you do happen to get down to this point. Now, obviously we have to turn on our electric reel. We can't be expected to sit there and wind on 1,000+ meters of line, so we're going to do it with the power the electric already has associated with it. One thing to look out for and one thing to be a little bit careful of is there's a dial here on the side of the reel which is associated with keeping tension on our level wind purely for when dropping a weight over the side of the boat. We don't want tension on that when we're spooling up, because all that does is increase the load that the motor is going to have applied to it as we're running the line on. So make sure that that is backed off a couple of turns and you won't have any dramas there. The reels themselves actually have an inbuilt tension guide for you. Again, a lot of people don't realise that it's there, but it will come up as soon as you lift your power lever to spool the reel. There's a little sign on that dial, on that screen, which has the letter P and the digit 1. As you start to spool, that will change to just a digit, and we want that digit somewhere between 5 and 7, and that will give you an appropriate tension for putting the line on. If you've got too much tension, even though this is a solid aluminium spool, that it actually can split that spool as the line contracts through temperature changes. It could even do it in your lounge room or in the boot of your car. If it happens to get very cold one night, the line will contract and it can actually split that spool. Too loose and it's going to cut down into itself very, very easily when all that tension comes on. We're going to have enough tension as it is just with the weight we're dropping over the side, let alone hooked up to a fish in a fighting fish situation. So we need to get that right, and if we do, we can expect flawless and troubleless operation throughout the life of that line. Okay, it is far easier if you have the facilities to run your spooler line that you're going to spool your reel with in some sort of a holder. You can of course use another person to do it, because running braided line through your fingers obviously has detrimental effects in a lot of areas. However, right now I'm going to sit that spool just next to the reel and I'm going to run the line through my fingers just to give you an indication of how this tension control system works. First thing we need to do before we start the motor up is make sure that we have adequate drag pressure. If we have too light a drag on there, the drag's actually going to slip as the line's coming on. It's going to give us an inaccurate reading of how much line we've got on the reel, and of course it's going to affect the tension as well. So drag wound up, it doesn't have to be wound up until you break it, but nice and firm on that drag setting and we won't have an issue. Our power lever, or just like an accelerator on a car or throttle control on a boat, located here on the right of the reel, and all I simply do is lift that power lever up and allow the line to start spooling on.